Hey, welcome back to the Jordan Secular Show. A good friend of ours, Harris Safar, who is the national spokesman for the Ahmadi Muslim community in the United States, and he lectures on Islam across the country. He's been very outspoken recently in some of what's happening in the Middle East and the Gulf states and the Arabian Peninsula about these statements coming from some other Muslim religious leaders, and most recently the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia. You know, and Saudi Arabia is a country the United States has a very close relationship with the government, and so there's always this at play issue on how far to condemn on religious freedom and human rights violations, because they have been, fairly good about, national security and other issues. And it's this kind of balance, and you'll see that happening between the State Department and then the U.S. Commission on Religious Freedom, International Religious Freedom, which is set up by Congress. It was just renewed recently. But Harris has written about this for Washington Post on Faith, and talking about how this statement made by the Grand Mufti, and I'll let him talk about it as well. And Harris, again, as always, thanks for being with us on the Jordan Secular Show.
Morning. Thank you for having me back.
Harris, first, let's talk about what the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia said. I sent it out via Twitter. I saw the news article. And, it's a shocking statement, but then you kind of think, okay, Saudi Arabia has zero religious freedom. But tell people about exactly what he said and called for when he was at this conference in Kuwait.
Oh, absolutely. So a Kuwaiti parliamentarian had proposed a bill to ban the construction of new churches in Kuwait. And so a Kuwaiti-based NGO delegation was sitting with the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, who is the supreme highest religious official of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And they asked him for what does Islamic law say about this proposed ban on the construction of new churches. And in response, he cited the Prophet Muhammad and argued that Prophet Muhammad once said that there should be only one religion in Arabia. And as a result, his words were, it is necessary to destroy all the churches of the region. So his call is not just to ban the construction of new churches, but his call is to actually destroy all current existing churches in all of the Arab Peninsula.
Let me ask you this. So you use that kind of language, Harris. It gets people, obviously, that's very violent, kind of like when it's one thing to say ban new construction. I agree with that on a human rights and religious freedom standpoint, but to say go in and destroy is violent. But where's the reason? I mean, this is, I think, something educational for all the listeners here who are predominantly Christian, is when you talk about, when they hear this, they think, okay, there must be justification for this in the Quran, or maybe it's Islamic law that's somehow tied to the Quran. What is the reasoning behind these kind of statements made by someone like the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, who doesn't just say, oh, we shouldn't build more churches, but actually goes so far as to say we should destroy the existing ones?
Absolutely, and it's alarming. So it's a very good question to be asking. Well, the Quran is very clear that it considers all religions to be divinely revealed, and all their founders are divinely appointed messengers, and we have to respect all of them. That's the tenet of Islam, is you have to accept all prophets: Jesus, Moses, Buddha, Confucius, Krishna, etc. Now, what they cite are some reported sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. And in this case, what he's saying is, say, the Prophet Muhammad on his deathbed or near his death said that, make sure there's one religion in Arabia, and that's Islam. Now, it's the same type of guidance that all prophets have given, that, I've given you the guidance, now stick with it. Don't pervert it, don't distort it, don't stray away from it. And that's the intention behind what the Prophet Muhammad said, which is, maintain Islam, which is a complete submission to God in the region. He never said, and prevent anyone else from practicing their faith. If anything, he allowed Christians to pray even in his house of worship during his lifetime, the Prophet Muhammad did. And so there's so many examples that disprove it, but what they typically do is take very controversial, sometimes misquoted, sometimes even fabricated quotes of the Prophet Muhammad and take that to be their law, even if it contradicts our highest source of knowledge, which is the Holy Quran. For even the Quran commands us as Muslims to defend all places of worship, where it says it specifically calls out churches, synagogues, temples, cloisters, and mosques. And because it says these are places wherein the name of God is oft commemorated, that we need to make sure that they are preserved and to defend those facilities. It's a complete 180 of what the Mufti is saying, which is calling for their destruction, for them to be torn down.
And I think this is sometimes you can read the Old Testament in the Bible, which has got some language in it, which is got violent. It's got violent language in it, and the imagery, the descriptions, the stories. Of course, talking about a different time period, but with it, not just within Christianity, with the New Testament, but also Judaism as well. That people do put aside. They understand the relevance to the time period it was written. Not that the teachings are wrong at all or incorrect, but that the way things are described, sometimes it seems very kind of violent and straightforward. But it was also written at a long time ago. And this is, I guess, the next question I have is, will other people speak out? You've spoken out. I've sent out your blog. It's twitter.com/Jordan Seculo, and Harris is on Twitter as well. You can follow him, and he's written about this in everything he's saying, too, so you can read it for yourself and see the information, see the quotes from the Quran, is in this article that he's written for Washington Post on faith. But do you expect others to follow suit? Why are we not maybe seeing more? Is it because people don't want to challenge Saudi Arabia and the strength in the Sunni world that they have, or is there some other reason about more people not speaking out?
I think there are two things, Jordan. One is we even see a surprising silence on this matter from even the media in the United States. That's why I applaud you for bringing some attention to this. We don't want to wait until a church is actually destroyed and people are killed before talking about this. Let's talk about it now. And I've been surprised at the silence even in the U.S. Media on this issue. It's been nearly 2 weeks since the Mufti said this. But not within the Muslim community, I've also been surprised that whenever there's a threat to burn a Quran or to tear down a mosque or to ban the construction of minarets, Muslims are up in arms about this is a human rights violation. We need to be able to practice our faith. But then when the coin is flipped, it's this eerie silence, and I think it's hypocrisy. For me, I think if I get theological for a moment, I think this is just a direct fulfillment of the prophecy of the Prophet Muhammad, where he said there will come a time upon the people, of his own people, when there will be nothing left of Islam but its name, nothing will remain of the Quran except its words. The mosques will be splendidly furnished but will be destitute of guidance. And he said that their divines, their leaders, the clerics, will be the worst people under the canopy of heaven. Strife will issue from them and avert to them. And so this is a condition that we see Muslims in the world today, is that they've strayed so far from the original teachings of Islam that they actually, by their silence, sanction the words of the Mufti. That, okay, if he's this grand Mufti who must know so much, maybe he knows what he's talking about, so we shouldn't question him. Whereas the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, being the followers of that promised Messiah who was supposed to come to reform Muslims and bring Muslims back to the original teachings of Islam, we're the ones that are coming out there to say this is wrong. And it's completely antithetical to what the Quran said, and also the charter that I mentioned in this op-ed of Prophet Muhammad, where he said for all Christians, for all times to come, we will never destroy their churches. They will never be forbidden to practice their faith. No monk will be removed from his bishopric, etc. And so there's so much freedom protected of Christians and non-Muslims, all non-Muslims, that to think that this is permissible, I think Muslims really need to take an inner glance to see, are they truly following the Islam that they claim to be following?
Harris, as always, it's great to have you on the Jordan Seculo Show. I make sure everybody gets your article at twitter.com/Jordan Seculo. You should follow Harris, too. And we'll talk to you next time, Harris. Thanks for speaking out.
Pleasure to be on. Thank you for all you do.
All right, folks, again, that's Harris Safari from the Ahmadi Muslim community. He's always been a great guest, writes great information, and I think helps a lot of people understand the complexities of what's happening within the Islamic world. As always, folks, go to facebook.com/Jordan Seculo Show. Follow me at twitter.com. Obamacare Monday at the Supreme Court. We'll talk to you then.